there's the recording. Hey, how's everyone doing? Welcome to the May 14th Transportation Committee meeting. Going to start with a roll call. So, Dominic Stiller. Here. I am here. And if I mispronounce anyone's name, I'm sorry, just let me know. Adam Fisher Cox.
Here.
Daniel Aliberti. I don't think Daniel's here. Kian Betancourt.
Here.
And this should be the most up-to-date committee list. I believe Mario Vergara is the newest public member. Do I have that right? Is Mario here? All right, it's a no. Shahnaz Hamdi. Shahnaz not here. Huma.
Here.
Phyllis Para. Marie Torniali. And Thomas Ryan. I do see Tom here, so.
Here, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so welcome everyone. And yeah, two presentations today. We are starting with Port Authority, who will be discussing the LaGuardia Airport Ground Access Plan Review. And so who do we have here? We have Luis Flores presenting. Is that right?
Good evening, Naz. Yes,
Okay.
it'll be myself, Raquel, and Hirsch Perek.
Okay. So yeah, with that, take it away.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Raquel Moss. I am the Community Outreach Manager here for the LaGuardia Redevelopment, and I just want to say thank you for once again giving us the opportunity to be able to speak to you all regarding our LaGuardia Ground Access Project. Today we have present with us Luis Flores, Frank Watts, and our Deputy Chief, Hirsch Perek. Luis, you can start. Does Luis have presentation access? Okay, great.
Naz, I'm not sure if you're able to
you should be able to share.
Please
try to share your screen if available.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. Thank you so much, Luis. So once again, I want to say thank you for giving us the opportunity to be able to speak to you all about our LaGuardia Airport Ground Access Program. Next slide. Well, today, our agenda, we're going to give you a quick overview. We're going to discuss the expert panel recommendations. Then we're going to talk about the Q70 improvements. And then lastly, we're going to talk about our next steps. So as the overview, in October of 2021, Governor Hochul asked for an expert panel to examine all potential mass transit options to get to LaGuardia. As a result, the air train at LaGuardia was put on hold. In March of 2023, the expert panel released a report analyzing 14 different options with the recommendation to pursue near-term bus improvements. As of June of 2023, the Port Authority Board authorized $30 million for preliminary planning for the bus options, ending the air train project completely. And as of March 27, 2025, the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey Board authorized the LaGuardia Link Q70 improvements. Next slide. So the recommendations that were placed to improve the ground access to LaGuardia was 1, a substantial improvement to the existing Q70 LaGuardia bus link service, and 2, a new nonstop shuttle service between LaGuardia Airport and the last stop on the N&W bus line, which is the Astoria Ditmars Boulevard one. Next slide. So currently, the LaGuardia Link Q70 bus, as you all know, is free, 1. Two is a nonstop shuttle to terminals B and C, and the current journey averages about 13 minutes, but it can take significantly longer depending upon the traffic. So the benefits of this improvement is one, to reduce the risk of getting caught in traffic, which lowers the traveler's stress. They reduce the travel time to the airport for approximately 20 to 25%, and also rebranding experience to attract new riders to be able to take the Q70 service. Next slide. So to talk about the expert panel recommendations, one was the transit signal priority on Roosevelt Avenue and Broadway, which we will discuss later on in the presentation, which will not just benefit the Q70, but benefit other buses to be able to utilize. A mile-long exclusive lane built on the shoulder of the northbound BQE between Northern and Astoria Boulevard. Frequency improvements as needed, and a new specifically designed bus pickup and drop-off area near Terminal C with direct exclusive road access. We're also going to discuss further on in the presentation our wayfinding and lighting improvements at Jackson Heights, Roosevelt Avenue, which is 74th Street, and 61st Street Woodside Station. And lastly, we're going to discuss about enhancing branding and signage, which will then promote to improve services for those who may not necessarily utilize the Q70. Next slide. Now I will turn it over to our Deputy Chief of Government and Community Relations, Hirsch Parekh, who will take us further in the presentation. Hirsch.
Great. Thank you, Raquel. So I will go over each of those recommendations that Raquel just listed in greater detail. Next slide, please. So we begin with the wayfinding, signage, and branding. All of you, I hope, are familiar with the Q70 as it currently exists. What we are looking to do is refresh the signage at the subway stations at both 74th Street, Jackson Heights, and 61st Street, Woodside. Also refresh the bus wraps on the buses just to make them more visible, better, more impactful, and easier to recognize, especially for individuals that may not be familiar with the New York City public transit system. And this is all intended to help increase ridership on the bus. So we will be doing this type of improvements as part of this project. These images you see on the screen are conceptual. We're still refining some of these in collaboration and coordination with the MTA. But this is going to be a critical part of attracting new ridership on the Q70, which already is quite popular in terms of access to the airport, but in furtherance of our goal to reduce the number of personal vehicles and other vehicles that travel to the airport and encourage people to rely more on public transit, these improvements will help in that endeavor. Next slide, please. So Raquel talked about the transit signal priority. So this is in greater detail, the intersections where we will be looking to activate the transit signal priority with City DOT. These are the key intersections along Roosevelt Avenue primarily, but also along Broadway. What this will do is help reduce the amount of time that the buses are stopped at red lights. And again, really improve the speed and the reliability of the buses to ensure that passengers and customers have a faster and more reliable ride. As Raquel noted, this TSP will also benefit a number of other bus routes that travel on Roosevelt Avenue, specifically the Q32, the Q47, and the Q53. And I'll just note it's critical to highlight the fact that the Q70 is used heavily, not just by airport customers that are looking to catch their flight, but also by airport employees, many of whom live in the communities around these stations and around Queens. And these improvements will help them get to their job faster and more reliably, and avoid the situation of them arriving late or facing any issues because of that. Next slide, please. I talked about how popular the bus is amongst both customers and employees. You can see on this line graph that ridership on the Q70 has increased steadily over the years, with 2024 being the highest ridership to date. And the fact that it's also free to ride helps significantly to improve and increase this ridership numbers. And so as we see this growth in demand, what we want to avoid is buses that get too crowded, especially during the peak period between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. And so to meet this growing demand, the MTA has agreed to increase the frequency of Q70 buses during that peak period. Again, this is all in an effort to increase ridership and increase capacity by reducing overcrowding and improving the passenger experience on the Q70. And those frequency improvements will begin later this spring, sometime in June. So this is right around the corner. Next slide, please. So here we're going to spend a little more time going into greater detail. Raquel noted the bus lane on the BQE, the northbound BQE between Northern and Astoria Boulevards. This was a critical recommendation of the expert panel, and we do see that sometimes the bus can get caught up in traffic on the BQE as it's going north towards the airport. And because of that situation, many customers on the bus will avoid it because they don't want to miss their flight or be late for their shift at the airport. And so we have been working with New York State and New York City DOT to really develop a concept that can achieve the goal of a bus lane. We'll go into greater detail for that in the next slide. So we start at Northern Boulevard. What we will be looking to do is essentially do what's a bus lane on the shoulder. It is not possible to widen the BQE for many reasons. However, there is a shoulder that currently exists on the northbound BQE. And so in order to accommodate a bus lane there will be some restriping that will be done such that the shoulder on the left-hand side of the road will be narrowed by a few feet, by 3 feet, as you can see. And the shoulder will be widened by 3 feet to accommodate a bus. What's critical to note here is this will not be a full-time bus lane. This will be a bus lane that will be available only for buses when there is congestion and traffic on the BQE. Meaning if traffic is free-flowing, the bus will travel as it normally does on the regular travel lanes. But if there is traffic and slowdowns and stops, the bus will be able to transfer over to the shoulder running bus lane and continue on that bus lane to reach its destination. As you can see, there will be signage added such that it will identify whether the bus lane is active or not, and it will be noted that it's for buses only. And we will work with the MTA to ensure that drivers are trained accordingly to ensure that they know when they are able to access the bus lane and use it to get to their destination versus when it's not available. Also important to note here, and this is one of the key reasons why it cannot be a full-time permanent bus lane, is we need to maintain a vehicle breakdown lane. So that if there is a vehicle that is stalled or if there's an accident or something and the vehicles need to pull over into the shoulder, they are still able to do that because the shoulder will remain a shoulder as well. And this is based on state and federal regulations about having that type of breakdown lane available on highways like this. And what we'll do is we're going to take the BQE bus lane in sections. So let's go to the next slide so we can go to the next section. So this is now, as you continue north, this is just south of 25th Avenue. Once again, we will be doing a similar shoulder running bus lane in this corridor. However, in this area, there is currently an environmental wall. You can see that on the image on the left-hand side. That wall is intended to provide privacy and prevent noise pollution and things like that from impacting some of the local residents on the other side of the BQE on Booty Street. And so what we will need to do is shift the environmental wall so that the bus has enough clearance to travel on that shoulder, again, when conditions deem it necessary. And so we will need to narrow some of the area on the other side of the wall. As you can see right now, it varies. The width of it varies. And so we will make it a consistent approximately 3 feet and shift the environmental wall so that the bus can travel on the bus lane when conditions warrant. We'll go to the next section. If we can go to the next slide. So this is now north of 25th Avenue. So here again, we're looking to do something similar, which is a shoulder running bus lane. But here, the environmental wall is no longer present. It's more of a concrete barrier. And so we will again need to shift that concrete barrier so that it can so that the shoulder on the BQE can accommodate buses that are traveling on it. However, in order to do that, we will need to realign the travel lanes on Booty Street, which runs on the other side of the BQE. And so with that realignment, we will need to remove what's currently the parking lane that currently exists. So you can see on the right-hand side where that it's painted in red. It probably won't be painted in red once it's all said and done, but that's where the shoulder running bus lane would be. And as you can see on the far right of the bottom image, there are some trucks and other vehicles parked in that lane. It is commonly used by trucks for parking. That parking will be removed so that the vehicle travel lane can be maintained on Booty Street and the bus lane can be accommodated on the BQE. Next slide, please. And so this just points out the items I just noted, both south of 25th and north of 25th Avenue. I talked about the environmental wall. We will be relocating it. There's also in this corridor, there are a number of fiber and electric utility lines, as well as the Buckeye pipeline that provides fuel to LaGuardia Airport. And so we are currently investigating each of those utilities and pipelines to ensure that any work that is done does not impact those utilities. And if we need to, do any relocation, that it's done responsibly without any disruption. So that investigation is underway. We've done a lot of work already with our engineers, and we will continue to do so. I talked about some of the signage that will need to be added, and I talked about the impact on parking on Booty Street, which will result in a loss of approximately 30 to 35 parking spaces along Booty Street. Next slide, please. This just highlight or zooms in more on the utilities, the fiber, the electric, and the Buckeye pipeline. You can see that on the picture on the left. The BPL yellow is the Buckeye, the F is fiber, and the E is electric. And so we did do some preliminary investigation several weeks ago, and that investigation is continuing as we progress with this project. Next slide, please. So next, after the bus passes 25th Avenue, it will exit and approach Astoria Boulevard. Here, what we will be looking to do is create a bus lane as it exits. And so this will allow it, when it exits the BQE, to really have a streamlined pathway to then enter the Grand Central Parkway. So you can see the top cross-section image, the current conditions, and the bottom cross-section image that shows the proposed conditions that will create a separated bus lane that will allow for the bus to move while still maintaining the vehicular travel lanes on both sides, on both the BQE exit ramp and on Booty Street. So after the bus exits the BQE, I'll go to the next slide, and it goes on to Astoria Boulevard. Here's just another aerial view of what I just described, the connection from the BQE to the Grand Central Parkway. As you can see, the bus in that hatched red line will approach Astoria Boulevard and be able to enter the ramp to the Grand Central Parkway. At this intersection, there will also be transit signal priority for the buses, again, so that the buses have easier access to make that connection from the BQE to the Grand Central Parkway. This is an area where there's three different, I'm sorry, just go back one lane, Lewis. There are three signals here, and so we just need to make sure one on Booty, one on the Grand Central, on the BQE exit ramp, and one on Astoria. So we will work with City DOT to ensure that the TSP can effectively serve the bus while also minimizing impacts on the other vehicular traffic that uses this corridor. Next slide, please. So then the GCP, the bus will enter the Grand Central Parkway on its way to 94th Street. Here, what we're looking to do is create an auxiliary lane. What this lane is, it's basically a lane that allows for traffic that is entering at one exit ramp and exiting at the immediate next exit ramp. So this is essentially the bus will enter the GCP from Astoria Boulevard, and the next exit is 94th Street. And so this will allow the bus to remain in that lane without having to cross over into other lanes of traffic, and allow it to more efficiently and in a faster way exit the GCP on its way to LaGuardia Airport. This lane is different from the shoulder bus lane I mentioned on the BQE because this lane will be available for all traffic that is entering at Astoria and exiting at 94th Street. It prevents people from having to cross over, which can be an unsafe condition at times if you're familiar with this interchange. And so by remaining in one lane from one entrance to the next exit, it allows for more streamlined operation, and again allows for an improved experience on the GCP for the Q70. Next slide, please. And this is just another picture showing how that would work. What we would do is take the existing shoulder and convert that into an auxiliary lane, and that would allow for the bus to get to its exit quickly. Next slide, please. So the bus then would enter the airport once it gets off the Grand Central Parkway. And first, as many of you may know, if you take the Q70, it goes to Terminal C. It goes all the way to the east side of the airport and loops around, goes past Terminal C, and then heads to Terminal B. Right now, that loop on the east side can slow the bus down significantly because of the amount of vehicular traffic that's currently there. And if you're someone that's trying to get to Terminal B and you're stuck in traffic in front of Terminal C, you are getting stressed out and the anxiety is rising. So what we're looking to do is allow the bus to avoid that traffic in the front of Terminal C entirely by creating a new road and a new pickup and drop-off point for Terminal C, which you can see in the bottom image. There's going to be a new location in front of the Terminal C garage. It will allow buses to drop off and pick up there and then proceed to Terminal B. This will be a time savings. It will also, it still maintains a similar walking distance from the old bus stop to the terminal to the new bus stop to the terminal. And this will be available only for buses. All buses that service LaGuardia Airport will be able to use this new roadway and pick up and drop off access point. So this is once it gets to the airport and it proceeds to C and B. Next slide, please. So that is the overall project. Let me turn it back over to Raquel to close us out.
Thank you, Hirsch. So our next steps is we're going to continue engagement with the community, informing them of these, the Q70 and the ground access program. Our next meeting would be on May 19th, which is next Monday, with the East Elmhurst Corona Civic Association. And then we're going to still have the planning and design efforts which will continue to propose the new Ditmars Boulevard shuttle service. Excuse me, Astoria Ditmars shuttle service. So if there are any questions, we want to just say thank you for once again giving us the opportunity. You're welcome to ask us any questions, and we'll be able to answer them.
And as one point of clarification, Raquel, we've done a series of these briefings for many community organizations over the past 2 months, right? So our next one is with the East Elmhurst Civic, but we've done similar briefings for a number of other organizations, Community Board 3, Community Board 4, civic groups, et cetera, over the past 2 months. So this is an ongoing effort.
Absolutely.
So let's go to the next slide, and we can maybe take the presentation down and open it up for questions, as Raquel said.
Okay, thanks for the presentation. Hirsch, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your last name earlier on. Do you mind repeating that for me?
Sure, it's Parekh, P-A-R-E-K-H.
Got it. Okay, thank you. So yeah, thanks for the presentation. Love to see better access to the airport, especially because it's weird that LaGuardia is so close and yet it feels accessible only in very limited circumstances, and sometimes they don't always work, especially when there's traffic. So I'm looking forward to that. I would love to very easily take buses to the airport. So with that, I'm going to go to questions in the order that I see them on my screen. Let's try to keep it at maybe one question with a follow-up, and then we'll go around the horn if you have a second or a third question, just to make sure that everyone can get a chance to ask what they want. So with that, I will start with Kian, who I see up here first.
Great. Yeah, just want to double that. I can obviously tell there's been a lot of thought that's gone into the plan, and just want to appreciate the work that you've all done. Obviously, it's a tremendous amount of effort. And as someone that also lives in Astoria and quite frequently goes to LaGuardia, I certainly welcome any and all changes that can come and bring me to that airport faster. It's a pain to get to as is. So my question specifically is, I know you mentioned there was the part of the BQE where you're repurposing the shoulder into building a sometimes temporary bus lane. And you had mentioned that that is going to be based on traffic conditions, right? So when there's heavy traffic, the bus would be free to use the bus lane. And then when there's not, they would be using the regular lane as is needed to retain that as a crash zone or a pullover zone. I have a main question and then just a follow-up in the spirit of Nos, what you let us do. So my first question is just, can you clarify who is making the decision as to whether the bus will go into that lane? Is that a dispatcher? Is that the bus driver themselves? Is there going to be like electronic signage? How does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So one, we're gonna, and I'm glad. I know the MTA is right after us. So we've been working very collaboratively with the MTA because ultimately they do run the Q70 bus service. But we'll be working with them to ensure that drivers of the Q70 are trained in a way that they know when the bus lane is available. But you may have seen, maybe Louis, we can go back to the picture. If we can go back to that, there will be signage that on the shoulder that will either have an X on it, meaning not available, or something like bus only lane or something. I forget the exact terminology, but it basically saying it's available, and that will be based on traffic conditions that will be monitored, in a remote way, right? So someone, watching traffic conditions will know that there is heavy congestion or the speeds on the road have dropped below X. We haven't quite decided what that threshold is, but they will be able to flip the switch so that the sign will say go from X to bus only lane or whatever the language says on the slide, something like that. So that's how it will be determined.
Okay. Great. Thank you for clarifying. My follow-up question to that is simply understanding that then and times where they are allowed to use that lane. Are the Q70 buses going to become equipped with cameras? Because I know that there's been an issue with the Staten Island Express buses going along the Verrazano and the Gowanus Expressway into downtown Manhattan. They have a purpose bus lane that at time is protected with concrete barriers, at time is not. And anyone who rides those buses will frequently tell you that there are often drivers slipping in and out of the lane in order to use it to bypass traffic themselves. So I'm wondering if there's going to be any kind of automated enforcement mechanisms that might prevent drivers from, of course, not pulling over in the event of a legitimate emergency, but those who are legitimately trying to use it to just simply bypass traffic.
So yeah, this is a question that we have received. I don't have an answer for you at this time, whether or not the buses will be equipped with the I forget the technical term, but basically, the cameras that can, snap your picture if you're in a bus that shouldn't be on. I know this is something the MTA has been looking at across their network, but I don't know. I don't have an answer about whether or not the Q70s will be equipped with that technology. And like I said, there's a question that we've gotten, and we will be exploring that further with the MTA.
Great. If I can please recommend we do, that would be amazing. But appreciate you don't have the answer right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Adam, you're up.
If we could look at slide 19 here, creating this auxiliary lane, I believe it was section F. I'm wondering where the space is coming from. It looks like we are kind of widening the highway there, which feels a little counter to the goal of kind of minimizing the amount of cars and traffic in this area. So I'm curious kind of what the existing conditions are here. Where's this additional space coming from and what this construction would look like to create this additional space on the roadway?
Yeah, we can go to the next slide, Louis. You can see, so on the far right-hand side, there's kind of like a shoulder area there. It's kind of where Sometimes DOT uses just to store equipment for work that they might be doing. It's oftentimes sometimes you'll see a lot of trash in the brush over there on the right hand side. So what we're doing is repurposing that lane for the auxiliary lane that we described.
Okay, so all this is already paved and exists as is, it just needs to be like cleaned up and repurposed. That's how it.
And we've talked again in conversation with state DOT. Vaughn College is up there on top of the hill over there as well. And if this is a way to also reduce the amount of trash that often piles up in some of those brush areas, I think it's going to be a welcome change. But yes, this is existing paved. It's just repurposing it from sort of a staging and storage area for equipment or things like that into a proper auxiliary lane for the bus and for other vehicles as well. Because like I said, this is not going to be exclusively for buses. This will be for all vehicles entering at Astoria and exiting at the next exit.
You have a follow-up, Adam, or is that it?
No, that's all for now. Thanks.
Okay, Tom Ryan's next.
Okay, first I want to talk about the initial area, the Woodside Station area. It's a very congested area. There's a lot of buses there, and the lighting and signage is terrible. And we don't have to, but I would like to see improvements done at that intersection. Also, your signage and street lighting is usually poor and all over the city, but I'd like to see that enhanced. There's sufficient street lighting. The lighting that the city uses now, the LED, is very substandard in terms of illumination. And signage, I was in LaGuardia the other day, and I couldn't get out of the exit, get out of the airport. I couldn't find the exits. So I'm just saying, make smart signage so that you're not driving and getting lost. Not just for this, but for everything in general. So
yeah, appreciate the comment. One critical element of this is improved signage for the Q70 at both 74th Street, Jackson Heights, and 61st Street, Woodside. Really highly visible, high impact, colorful, easy to follow, easy to understand. Whether, if you're new to the city, if English is not your first language, just make it very easy to understand. And so, yes, signage, both off the airport at those stations and on the airport to make the Q70 as visible and attractive as possible is part of this project.
okay, sorry.
I was just going to say we agree that signage is a critical way for anybody, whether you've been to LaGuardia 100 times or this is your first time at the airport. So we are always looking at ways to improve the customer and the passenger journey, and signage is a critical part of that.
Okay, do you not stack the buses? Because at Roosevelt and 61st, you have the 53, the 70, the 32, and it seems buses are stacking up. They're waiting to start their route or whatever, but it's just adding to the congestion. So if they can be put at a auxiliary site until they start their route, that would be preferred also.
Yeah, appreciate the comment. Again, our focus for this project is improving the journey on the Q70. But understand and appreciate the comment and about the conditions at Woodside, and if there's ways that can be addressed, with the MTA, where we can take a look at that. But really, our focus on this has been the journey from the subway and Long Island Railroad stations to the airport.
Okay, thank you.
And Bobby's next.
Thank you for that. And also thank you for working on improvements to all of these things. As someone who rides the M60 quite a lot and related buses to and from LaGuardia, big fan. My question is, do you have any estimates available about like how often we expect the buses to be able to utilize the bus only on-demand lane that we were talking about earlier at the Grand Central Parkway? It's auxiliary lane.
Do you mean the shoulder bus lane or the auxiliary lane?
I believe the auxiliary lane is the one I was most curious about. The one that is open. Oh no, sorry. The one that is on demand. The one that's activated by
okay, so the bus lane on the beach
unknown party right now.
Yeah. So running bus lane. I don't have those estimates. We do know that most times the traffic is relatively free flowing on the BQE, but it's really focused on when it's not, especially, during rush hours and things like that, which is something that will be available. But unfortunately, I don't have an estimate about how many times or during what hours of the day, because it can vary, right? And so I don't have that information.
Do you know, as just a follow up to that, do you know if it was looked at or studied, like using past traffic information to see, like, how much utilization could we get out of this on demand bus lane?
Yeah, I don't know. It's something we can look into. I don't have an answer to that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Stiller.
Hey, thanks. Hi, Hirsch again. Three quick questions. Number one, I just want to confirm you're going to 2 7 train stations.
I know. So 3 is too many, I think.
All right, 2. I'll compound them. They'll be easy. So, in fact, I'll put that one aside. Number one, do you have an approximate?
I'm happy to answer that.
Do you have an approximate date of the hint of the Ditmars shuttle, when that might be operational? Even a range of hopeful dates for that. 2, I think this is not a question. I think the whole idea of prioritized buses from the airport is awesome, and hopefully will continue to be a game changer and an increase in your stats that you had there that you showed before, which really dipped during COVID, obviously. And then I did want to just basically ask how the mountain traffic is coming, if you have time to touch on that. The other subject that you showed 4 months ago or so, and that was all. Just a good presentation, and thank you. It seems timely and important, and thank you for your work.
Yeah, so on the Astoria's Ditmar shuttle service, as you can imagine, that does require additional work, because that would be a brand new service as opposed to the Q70, which is existing. So I don't have a rough time frame about that, but it is something that we are really prioritizing now that the Q70 is sort of well underway or moving forward. So as we have more updates related to that, we will certainly make sure to come back and share updates as plans are further developed and refined for that element of the ground access program. As it relates to the Ingram's Mountain situation and the for-hire vehicles up there. So not too long ago, we were actually out there with your district manager, with New York City DOT's Queensborough Commissioner's Office and our LaGuardia Airport staff, to really look at what types of improvements, traffic control devices, whether it's stop signs or traffic signals or something, that can be installed to address the increased traffic that is now at those intersections. And so the first thing we need to do is just monitor the traffic to understand, what the counts are. And then we will work with New York City DOT to look at what types of improvements can be made to address some of the conditions that have been created there. So more to come on that, but it is something that we are staying on top of. And like I said, we were out there just a few weeks ago with your district manager and the city DOT office and all of those as well.
And Hugh is next.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you, Port Authority, for a very good presentation. Question on timeline. I didn't see any mention on when we can start to expect some of these improvements. It seems like a pretty large project with a lot of capital improvements, but wondering if there are some things that we can see before the end-to-end project is done.
Yeah, so I'll just say, I talked about the frequency improvements on the Q70. Those will begin, as I think I mentioned, sometime this June, probably the second half of June, is what the target is. The new Terminal C bus pickup and drop-off lane and location, we actually just within the past, I want to say 2 or 3 weeks, put that contract out for bid. So we will be receiving proposals for that in the near future, so we can advance that construction. And then the BQE piece is a little bit more complicated because it involves coordination with state DOT, and it will likely involve some type of federal review, which we're still working through exactly what that is and how long that will take. But you will start to see these improvements coming into being implemented in phases as early as within the next few months, right? Some of the signage improvements, the frequency improvements will begin within the next few months. The transit signal priority, again, will begin very, very quickly. It's those pieces that do require some construction that will take a little bit longer. But like I said, we're already in the beginning of the procurement process for the Terminal C project. And the BQE piece will take a little bit longer because of the additional approvals and reviews necessary for that.
Okay, Bobby, did you have another question?
I did, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. I was going to ask about that roadway, the new roadway for Terminal C. Was that a part of the original LaGuardia rebuild plans? Or was
No,
that like a net new thing?
it's going to be a new roadway that will be built alongside the existing roadways that will be available for buses only.
Cool. Thank you.
So if there's no further questions, I'm going to do my own civic duty and head into my own personal community board meeting that I'm waiting to walk into. So appreciate the time, and I'll turn it back to Raquel to close us out on the Port Authority side.
Well, once again, thank you everybody for giving us the opportunity. If there are any other questions that you all may have, you are welcome to reach out to Florence and send her those questions, and she can be able to forward those questions to us, and we can be able to answer them as best as our ability. Okay. So thank you again, and we will speak to you all soon.
Thanks to the Port Authority team for the very informative presentation. All exciting changes. We'll be even more excited, I think, for the Ditmars shuttle eventually when that happens. Fingers crossed. But yeah, so moving along, we have up next the presentation by the MTA regarding the Queens Bus Network redesign and some info and updates. We have Rick and we have Megan, I believe, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so with that, take it away.
Thank you very much and good evening, everyone. Really appreciate the time that we have this evening. I'll be quick because Rick is going to take us through the presentation, but this is for the Queens Bus Network redesign. We've been to the board before. We've been making our way around to all of the community boards across Queens for a long time now, but we're finally at the implementation phase for this project. We had an MTA board vote approval on this effort earlier this year in January, so we're gearing up for implementation that's going to take place in 2 phases, beginning in June of this year, and then the second phase in August. So we have a deck to get through, and then we'll be happy to take any questions at the end. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rick so he can introduce himself and get through the presentation.
Thanks, Megan. I'm Rick Hajduk. I'm the manager for the Queens Bus Network redesign, and I'm happy to walk through where we're at now with the project. So why are we doing this? Well, it's been several decades since we've taken a look at the Queens Bus Network. Since then, there's been new developments, new travel planners, declining reliability, demographic changes, new buildings. So it was time to take a fresh look. What did we look for when we started to look at redesigning this bus network? Well, we spoke with our riders to identify 4 priorities. Of those priorities, riders wanted reliable service, faster travel, better connections, and simplified service. We developed several strategies, and we had presented those previously before, so I don't want to get too much into them, but you can go to the planning process and learn more about the planning process at mta.info/Queens Bus redesign. So as you are probably all aware, it's been a long time coming for us to implement this project. It is now on our 6th year since launching in 2019. We have developed multiple iterations of the plan, starting with the original draft plan off of the existing conditions report, the new draft plan based off of public feedback, and then the proposed final plan based off more public feedback. And again, after more public feedback, the proposed final plan and addendum, which, as Megan had mentioned, we had published in December of 2024 and brought to the board for an affirmative board vote in January of 2025. We are now going to preparing to implement this project, and we're going to all of the community boards in Queens to let them know, give them updates on the implementation process and what to expect. We will be implementing this project in 2 phases, beginning on June 29th. That will be the first phase. The second phase being on August 31st. All of this will be followed by a post-implementation analysis. This process has been heavily influenced by the community. We've had 250 total events with various communities throughout Queens. This included pop-up events, open houses, workshops, community board meetings, stakeholder engagements, and meetings with elected officials. We received over 18,000 comments, and that's how we got to this point where we brought it to the board, and that's what the new network will look like. The new network will be 124 total bus routes versus the 113 existing. There will be 94 local routes and 30 express routes. This new network will expand access for the people of Queens. 124,000 more residents of Queens will have access to the all-day frequent network, which has a bus that arrives every 10 minutes or better between 6 a.m. and 9 p.m. And 68,000 more residents will have access to the 24-hour bus network after this full plan is implemented in August 31st. So what changes should riders expect to see? The first thing that people will probably notice is changes to bus stops. We're adding, relocating, and removing hundreds of stops to make rides faster, more reliable, and improve connections. We're changing routes, so we're rerouting some routes for faster and more direct service. And some routes are getting new bus numbers. We're also adding new routes. We're expanding the network with new routes and extended routes to more areas. And we're introducing the new Rush Route, which is a newly designed route that makes local stops further from the subway. This is primarily in Eastern Queens. And then making more limited stops along the major corridors as you get closer to the major hubs like downtown Flushing or downtown Jamaica. A little bit more about these rush routes. This kind of is a visual here. This is the Q46 rush route along Union Turnpike. The purple end further east, that would have more local stop spacing. And then when you start to see these dashed sections, that's where you're going to have more limited stops. The whole point of this is to get people further away, still have local bus access, and then really expedite their travel into the Kew Gardens area so they can get to that connection and get to their final destination, oftentimes in Manhattan or other parts of Queens. There are going to be 25 total new rush routes. Important thing to note is that the rush routes like this Q46 will have a underlying local segment along that rush segment, or an underlying local route along that rush segment to pick up local bus customers that need access to grocery stores or doctor's offices or whatever they might need along that portion of the roadway. As mentioned before, implementation will be in 2 phases. The first phase on June 29th, you can see the green here, is largely based out in Eastern Queens. There are some routes like the Q63 or Q66 that will be also in phase 1. That would be on June 29th. On August 31st, roughly 1/3 of the routes will be implemented. The remaining third, largely in Northwest Queens, so largely in Community Board 1, and also in Southwest Queens, so the Rockaways and Ozone Park area, and other parts near JFK. The phasing was very complicated. It required quite a bit of effort to limit network gaps, to make sure there was no issues with too many buses laying over in one area due to the changes, and to try and keep depots together because depot capacity is a difficult thing to measure. So the more you keep depots together, the easier it is to implement this project to make sure that there are enough operators and buses to properly service the new routes. So in Community District 1 and Community Board 1, the Q63, which is the new route, will be introduced on June 29th, and any changes to the Q66 you'll be able to see. That's primarily bus stop consolidations. On August 31st, you'll see changes to Q18, Q19, Q60, Q69, Q101, 102, 103, 104, B62, and Q100, which unfortunately I forgot to put on this list. So that's what you can expect to see. You may have already started to see some changes at the bus stop level. The Q66 or Q63, I believe, already has had some changes put in. We are in the process of going through the bus stop changes actually began in February. And this is because there are thousands of bus stops that need to be changed throughout the network. It's important to note that service will continue at the stops even if the signage changes. So no routes or bus stops will change until June 29th or August 31st, depending on the route. We are installing these yellow guide-a-ride inserts at the stop level to try and inform the public of what changes are occurring. You may already see those out there as well. We are looking to install around 7,500 of these at each unique stop that has impacts throughout Queens during phase 1, and an additional 2,500, 3,000. We don't have the exact number for phase 2, so we're looking at around 10,000 unique guide-a-ride inserts at the bus stop level to help inform the public. So there are some interesting tools that we've created to help the public navigate and understand what changes they can expect with each of these phases. The first tool is the route lookup tool. That's right here. You go to mta.info/queensbus, and it will take you to the route lookup tool. This is where you select one or more routes in that search for your bus, and it'll actually tell you the details of what is changing and link you to the bus stop lists and the route profiles, and give you service alternatives. So it's a great way to learn what's happening to the Q66 or what's happening to the Q69 or 18 or whatever it might be. And that's the perfect way to look. We'll also have additional resources on this page, like the future trip planner and phasing guide. The future trip planner, this is where you can check out what your future trip will be after full implementation. So not during that in-between phase. So not after June 29th, but once the full network is implemented, you can use the future trip planner to understand what your new commute will look like in the future. So you would type in September 7th to the 13th, and you'd put a start location and end location, and you can see what your commute would look like in the future. Between phases, you can use the MTA app or bus time to get accurate information, to learn how to navigate the system, and all of the third-party apps should be updated as well. So Google Maps will be able to use that to try and find out how to get to point A to point B with this new in-between network that we'll be seeing starting June 29th. We've also have a project phasing guide that is downloadable and printable, and it separates out the routes by color and date. So the green routes here are the ones that are changing on June 29th. The purple routes here are the ones changing on August 31st. And then you have some other colors here. The reds, those are routes that are being discontinued. And you have some grays there, which are routes that just have no changes. So the Q44, 53, and Q70 don't have changes associated with the Queens Bus Network redesign. As always, you can stay connected with the MTA app, bus time, calling 511, and signing up for alerts at mta.info/notify. You can go to find out more information on the project by going to mta.info/queensbus. And this QR code will take you to that website, but that QR code will also be on those inserts at the bus stop level. So if I go back really quick, right there is the QR code. So everybody out in the field, if they want to know what is happening at their bus stop or at their route, they'll have this information there, and they can also get quick access to the webpage to find out more information if they have any further questions. So with that, I'll hand it back to Megan. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. So that wraps up the presentation. We really do encourage everyone to check out the resources that Rick shared towards the end there. I'll also make sure that we share a copy of the deck. Florence, I'll get that over to you so that that can go out to the members here. Really check out that route lookup tool. That'll be really helpful moving forward. So I'll stop there, and we're happy to take any questions that we can answer tonight. And if we can't, we will get back to you.
Okay, thanks for the presentation. Yeah, massive amount of changes. I feel like we've been talking about this forever. I would also just say for anyone that's wondering about their route, just because bus routes are super personal and specific, the route lookup tool is great. The future trip planner is great. Like that's probably the easiest way to see. I've done it myself. It's probably the easiest way to understand, like, okay, what's actually happening to my route, and it's a really well designed page, so lots of good, easily parsable information there. With that, we will start questions with Tom.
My question states more at the local level. One is about buses bunching up. Does it make sense you have two buses, one behind the other? One is packed, the other one is empty. And I see that regularly. So there's got to be a better control there. Secondly, pet peeve wise, if we're going to give buses bus stops, they have to use the bus stop. They stop in the middle of the traffic lane and load and discharge passengers there. So if we're going to have a bus stop, please ask them to use the bus stop. And the last thing is courtesy. There are a lot of, let's say, unprofessional drivers out there. Maybe you guys can give them a little refresher course in common courtesy and public. So those are just some of my pet peeves. Thank you.
Sure. On the first item, when it comes to bus bunching, and Rick, feel free to chime in on this at any point, but our goal in revamping the entirety of the network is that we're going to be able to solve for some of the issues that might lead to bus bunching. We do have an analysis period once the redesign is implemented. So after August, where we're going to be taking a look at how service is actually operating, and we'll be able to look at things like bus bunching. But like I said, the goal is that we'll be able to address some of those concerns through the process of actually redesigning the entire network across the borough of Queens.
Yeah, thanks,
Great.
Matt. That's
Thank you.
I would also add that sometimes the bus bunching, it becomes problematic. The first bus leaves, it starts to pick up passengers, and then the next one, there are no passengers behind there. So it just kind of picks up and kind of gets really close, and they kind of leapfrog each other. It's just kind of, unfortunately, a part of how the network works when a lot of people are at a stop. They all get on one bus. It kind of delays that bus, and then the other bus kind of catches up. But as Megan had said, we're really hoping that this redesign will help address some of that and make our network more reliable and kind of solve some of that issues. Thank you for the comment.
Yeah.
In cases where buses aren't using bus stops, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why that could be. Bus operators have to stop at bus stops, but we find, of course, with the configurations and traffic and things like that, that there could be other reasons why they wouldn't. That's the whole point of also really expanding the ACE program, the automatic camera enforcement program, so that we can keep our bus lanes and our bus stops clear. But if you're finding throughout your travels that there is a repeated occurrence where a bus is not stopping at a bus stop and doesn't seem to be some known obstruction, that's information that can be shared with Florence at any point, and she can send it over to me and we can look into that. So we would just need the information concerning the route, your destination, the time you traveled, and the bus number if possible, and we can take a closer look at that.
Ian.
Okay.
Yeah, firstly, just want to say just an amazing job. I recognize this is such a tremendous project with so many complexities, and there's no way you can possibly make everyone happy. So I just want to acknowledge that. I can say you made me very happy as someone that lives on 21st Street by adding that B62 route. That thing is a godsend. It is really hard to get from to Brooklyn from Astoria. So just wanted to call that out. Also, great job keeping the queue 100. That thing is amazing. Anyway, that's not my question. Just wanted to say that. My question is more around, obviously, the intent of this project is to improve bus efficiency, bus speeds, etc. Are there any plans, either as part of this redesign or following it, to improve the infrastructure along said lines, not just the routes themselves? So, for instance, more bus shelters where there are currently posts. You guys have installed some countdown timers, but there's weird areas where there's one side of the street, but not the other for the same bus stop. Articulated buses in the case of rush routes, or more complex routes with a lot of people on them. Level boarding platforms that are present at 21st and Broadway, or 21st Street and 35th Avenue for the Q66 or 69. So those are just my questions, recommendations, if there's any plans there. The second part of it is something I know you guys can hopefully turn on at any point is, are there any plans to turn on the backdoor boarding Omni machines? I know that was something that was meant to be implemented for a while. I recognize that there were concerns around fare evasion. and that was why it was delayed. But I legitimately think that could be one of the fastest ways to improve bus speeds if that's really what you're after.
Sure. Okay, so let's work. Let me see. Let's start from the top. Thank you for the compliments. We always appreciate those. Happy to hear that you're happy about some things in the plan. Some of the bus stop, what we call bus stop furniture, actually falls under DOT's jurisdiction. So I believe you mentioned the countdown clocks and also the bus shelters. Those are two items where you would definitely want to express that to DOT if there are specific spots along the network that you want to see that. And then you also mentioned, what was the third? I think it was
I think I
a
named
ramp
bus
or
shelters, countdown timers, articulated buses, and level boarding platforms.
level. Okay, so on Arctic buses, I don't know if Rick, if you have any insight on that. Otherwise, we'd have to get back to you.
So articulate buses can be difficult. There needs to be capacity at the depot. Obviously, that we don't have a ton of them just readily available. They're usually out. So it's pretty complex to be able to get that, but we do add them occasionally. We obviously added them to the Q70 a few years ago. We added them to the Q53, 52. So we do look into that, and that's a future look ahead item, obviously, because it takes a procurement process and all of that. But I do know that we're looking into that type of stuff. I don't have any specific details as to what the plans are. That's kind of the fleet management area of it, but depot capacity is a limiting factor, and in particular, LaGuardia Depot is pretty overwhelmed. If you ever drive past it, if you ever seen it, there are buses all over the place. So depot capacity is a strong limitation on some of that type of stuff.
And then on the all-door boarding, it is a question that we get often. I don't have an answer at this time. I think everyone, for the most part, knows that we are phasing out the MetroCard entirely by the end of this year. We're working through that Omni transition. When we are in a point where I do know more about that, happy to share that, but I don't have updates on that at this time. I'd appreciate the question.
Understood. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Adam.
Yeah, won't go into too much, but just want to echo the thanks and compliments on it. It's hard to please everyone here, but it seems like overall a great improvement to the network. I'm curious to know a little bit more about the kind of post implementation analysis. What sort of things you'll be looking for? Will you be taking more input from the public in any way with that? And like what sort of changes you might make if I'm just curious about some examples of like what sort of thing you might see that would then result in, I don't know, a change to a route, a stop coming back, a stop being removed, anything like that. What is the kind of parameters of what might still change in that post-implementation phase?
I think our goal is to see how successful the network is. Are we speeding up buses like we're hoping? We're doing a lot of new turns, so there might be issues with turns that are unexpected that might require us to take a look at it. There might be bus stops that are overwhelmed with buses that we didn't anticipate being a problematic. Maybe we're putting a bus stop in front of a grocery store and there's a delivery issue and we need to make changes based off of that. I would say that it's primarily, definitely an operations issue, but then community input will be important as well. The community might see that there's an issue that needs to be addressed, and if it's, if they get in contact with GCR, we'll look into it, and if we see a problem that the community says, and we actually look at it and say, yeah, you're right, that is a problem, then it's something that we might be able to address. But we do need to implement the network first in order to understand what is and isn't a problem. So our goal is to use this implementation period to kind of allow the network to bake in, see what's working, and start to make adjustments after that 6 month period or so that we've allowed the network to kind of allow the customers to get used to the new network.
So what would be really helpful for us, Adam, when the time comes and you start writing your routes and you're experiencing the changes, anything that you're experiencing that you are liking or not liking, that's information that if you're able to share that with Florence, you can get that over to me, and we would start to document that so that the feedback that we're getting through our stakeholders like community boards, but also through our customer service channels, that is part of our review process.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, MTA, for a very thoughtful presentation. I had a question about, this is very specific, but I remember at a previous iteration where you present the plan, some community members from Ravenswood had talked about the bus stop that was removed from 36th Avenue and 21st Street. I'm looking at the website now and I can't tell if that stop has been added back? I know. Oh, is that back? Okay, sounds good. That's all.
We actually added it back in advance of the plan, so it's out there
Okay.
now. So yeah.
I see. Okay. I guess I have one question. Looking at it, there's a bus going down 36th Avenue. Fantastic. It's going to be super helpful. It seems like there's a turn from 36th Avenue to 31st Street, and has a lot of like the trains, all the metal, like all the poles and stuff. It seems like a pretty tight turn. So, how are you thinking like that you're going to make that work?
So we actually went out and ran test buses with our partners in the depots and in the unions and in road operations, and we tested out each of these turns. We did notice that we probably want to push back that stop bar. It's a similar turn actually that already exists over at 30th Avenue onto 31st Street as well. It makes that left turn and right turn, the Q 102, the existing Q 102. So we're gonna take a look at it. We're working with DOT to try and get this resolved. If there's issues with the turn and our partners in the union and our partners in road operations start to document this is a problematic turn, then that's the type of thing in the post-implementation analysis that we would look at and see if we needed to do a different routing of that bus, go up to where the Q66 goes. I think it's 36th Avenue, or sorry, 35th or 34th. And maybe make that left and then go back to 36 another way. But that's the type of thing that we're going to look at during the post-implementation analysis. But I know the turn you're talking about. So, yep. Good
Thank you.
question. Thank you.
Okay, I have a question. So Q69 is one of my main lines, and I have to say the changes post the automated camera enforcement on that line have been significant. It's something I feel on a day-to-day basis. I even saw that there was a press release not too long ago that was touting the Q69 improvements on that front. So one thing I'm wondering is in terms of all these new routes and these route changes, are there any that are going to have that automated camera enforcement from the get-go, or is that something that you're going to determine as needed? Because in general, it's a huge improvement. Obviously, police cannot be around watching bus stops, and we have, especially on these major avenues, a lot of people using it as my, grabbing a cup of coffee spot. So just wondering if there's implementations that are ready to go for that, or if that's something that's gonna wait until after the routes go in.
So happy to hear that ACE is working well in the Q69. We really believe in the program as an effective tool, and we are looking towards future launches, not just in Queens, but just across the city in general. But that, you probably also saw that we issued a press release announcing that we're going to be putting ACE on 2 routes in Manhattan. So all that to say that we're thinking about what the next couple of launches are going to look like. I don't think that right off the bat, when we get into implementation, that there's going to be any new launches in Queens. I think we need to figure out the phasing of that. If there are other routes that you're interested where you think ACE, where those routes would be a good candidate for ACE, please share that with us, and we can take that into account with all of the other metrics that we use to consider which routes should have ACE. But all that's to say, right now, we don't expect for any of the buses to be rolled out with ACE when it comes to the implementation phases in June and in August.
Okay. I mean, I get it. I feel like there are certain commercial strips where you can say, yeah, this may be a problem, but that the MTA is open at least is good to know. Sort of related to that, not specific to the redesign, do you have more complete data on like the breakdown of the automated camera enforcement on the Q69? Because we were just thought maybe it would be nice to pass along to the board just to see like a local change and how much impact that's having. Because I know that the press release was like really brief when it came to the Q69. Is that something you could send over to the board office so that we can have that on hand?
Yeah, I can check with my colleagues in Department of Buses. I don't know how much is available at this point. I can also share, we did a presentation on ACE as part of our, we have monthly committee meetings and board meetings as an agency, as an organization, and we did this for New York City Transit back in March. It might be too soon to probably get the amount of information that you're looking for the Q69, but let me check with them and see what I can share.
Okay, thanks. Bobby.
Thank you. I'd just like to also thank you for the presentation. Tons of great info, very exciting stuff. And I just wanted to reiterate the hope that, especially with routes that are being newly added or like substantially changed as a part of the Queens bus network redesign, that ACE camera enforcement be, heavily considered, studied, and hopefully implemented, so we can really see the full benefit of those changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. Noted.
And Adam.
Yeah, I just had a follow-up question about, I guess, the MTA's philosophy on the automated camera enforcement. Is that currently being deployed on specific routes because just because only certain buses are equipped with them, and the ideal is that at some point in the future, every bus is equipped with them and every route is using them? Or is there some sort of more tactical thought about, regardless of whether the bus has the camera or not, like only certain routes are candidates for the automated enforcement?
It's based on a number of metrics that have to do with ridership and where we tend to find the most obstructions along the routes. A lot of it is also based on bus operator feedback that we get too. I think, in the past, we've also said that our in an ideal world, we won't have a situation where we have this many obstructions, whether it's in bus lanes or in bus stops, and we won't even need to have a need for the camera. But I can also share some information about sort of like what are the metrics that we look at to determine which routes make good candidates for ACE, so that you can have that knowledge as well.
Thank you. Just to clarify something more briefly then, is every bus equipped with the infrastructure for it, but it's only turned on certain routes, or like a
No.
route is determined as a candidate and then the buses get the cameras added?
Correct, yes.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, looks like there's no more committee members or questions. Would like to thank you for the presentation. Looking forward to all the changes, and yeah, I would urge everyone, feedback, especially on the camera stuff, if stops are not working, and the mta.info/Queensbus for like the really nitty-gritty details on the changes is super helpful. So thanks again, and yeah, we'll see you next time.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Appreciate the time. Have a great night.
Okay, so with the presentations over, I'm going to kick off old business, new business. First with the old business. I was given a letter today from the board office. In case you weren't following the updates on this, a few months back, we had written the letter regarding the NYPD police chase policy. We lost a community member, Amanda, due to a high-speed chase. Yes, shortly after the new commissioner was appointed, the policy did change. We did see a lot of the things that we were asking for in our letter. And so we recently got a formal letter from the police department regarding this. And so I just figured I'd read it. So in case you weren't following this from the beginning, that you're up to date. But and of course we got a good result and maybe some closure on a tragic situation. But I'll just read off this letter. Thank you. This is from the Chief of Department at One Police Plaza. Thank you for your letter to Mayor Adams regarding vehicle pursuits. We recognize and appreciate your engagement on this important public safety matter. We also recognize the deep concerns that incidents like Amanda's death raise within the community. We share in the sorrow over the loss of her life. Any loss of life under such circumstances is a tragedy, and we extend our deepest sympathies to all those affected. As you shared your letter with our agency, we want to acknowledge your concerns and emphasize that the New York City Police Department continuously evaluates its policies to enhance public safety. On January 15th, 2025, the department announced revisions to its vehicle pursuit policy, which reflect the careful consideration of these complex situations. The details of these changes were outlined in a public statement, which remains available for reference here at www.nyc.gov/sites/NYPD/news/PR004/Commissioner Tish New NYPD. I'm sure we can just put that in the chat. It'll be easier. You can read that press release. It continues on February 1st, 2025, those policy revisions took effect. This revised policy sets clear standards and guidelines about when police officers can engage in vehicle pursuits. These critical changes clarify procedures, increase oversight, and restrict vehicle pursuits to only the most serious crimes. Our police officers have clear, unambiguous parameters for when to initiate, continue, and terminate these pursuits. This new policy also expands supervision over pursuits and requires more detailed and timely documentation when they occur. Since adoption of the new policy, there have been significant reductions in the number of vehicle pursuits conducted from February 1st, 2025 to April 15th, 2025. Vehicle pursuits have decreased by approximately 16% when compared to the same period in 2024. Further, vehicle pursuits involving any collision or injury have decreased by approximately 30%. 75 this year versus 107 for the same period in 2024. We recognize that no policy discussion can fully account for the profound loss felt by a community when a life is tragically cut short. Public safety policies must always strive to balance enforcement with the protection of all who share our streets, and we remain committed to that mission. We appreciate your engagement on this issue and welcome ongoing dialogue as we work towards our shared goal of a safer city. Signed, sincerely, John M. Chell, Chief of Department. So I think that's something we can all feel pretty good about. We worked hard together on that with the Public Safety Committee as well. So I don't think anyone from there is here, but much appreciated, and it was great collaborating. And I think we got a pretty good result that we can be proud of, and hopefully not have to experience a tragedy like that again. And so with that, I'll turn over the old business section to anyone that might have some old business to bring up. Any old business? Going once? Going twice? Okay. Any new business that anyone wants to bring up?
Not really new business, but just wanted to make everyone aware, not quite Astoria, but in Long Island City, the pedestrian pathway is opening this Sunday. That was announced. So anyone who would like to walk from Queens to Manhattan over the 59th Street Bridge now has a totally separate way to do it without conflating that with bicycles. So super, super exciting if it actually goes through on Sunday, which hopefully it does.
Yeah, it seems like it's happening for real this time. So that's a major change, a lot of extra space, and honestly, it's a great view. Like the view's incredible on that side. So yeah, that's something to look forward to beginning this weekend, fingers crossed. And then yeah, any new business? Nope. So I think with that, I would just say, yeah. So something I was talking to Dom about, coincidentally, was the automated camera enforcement. And so the reason why I asked about stats was it would just be good to see how big those improvements were, because the initial press release was kind of vague. But I was intending at some future date to kind of revisit that subject with some information, and then we can start looking at and gathering input from the committee that, hey, if your route sees the same problems that perhaps the Q69 saw that, we can get a letter together or just make a specific request with the board office for another line to get the automated camera enforcement. And yeah, so I think as far as that goes, as Florence had mentioned earlier, I don't know if everyone was in the meeting yet, but we are waiting to hear back from DOT regarding the 31st Street redesign. No future meeting date is set yet to go to the full board, but if you are interested in looking at the presentation, the recording from the April committee meeting, I believe, is up on the CB1 YouTube channel. So it's a full deck. Design's not final, of course, but a lot of good info there, so you can get an idea of it. And yeah, I guess if there is no other new business, we got to get some motions to adjourn, right?
I'll make a motion.
Adam, and we need a second.
I'll second.
And Kian seconds. So, okay. Thanks, everyone. Let me know how my trial run went. And
You were great.
Thank you. Yeah, with that, everyone have a good night, and we'll see you at the next meeting.
Thanks so much, everyone. Have a good night.
Take care. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Harish Studios. We can close the meeting now. Have